Alright, a couple videos ago we were talking about what happens to us when we pass on. Is there an afterlife? Let's do a part 2. Alright, so in part 1 we said we didn't know what happened to us when we passed on, so instead we talked about what we do know. That one, all of us are going to have a massive DMT trip when we pass away. DMT standing for dimethyltryptamine. And 2, the conscious part of ourselves, the ego, does not come back, does not survive, if reincarnation is a thing. In this part, we're going to be a little bit more speculative, and we're going to begin with those paranormal shows, which have been dying off lately because they had become so oversaturated that people just got sick of watching them. But you all remember the ghost hunter type shows where they're searching for evidence of the paranormal, EVPs, little balls of light called orbs floating around. All of which is supposed to prove to us, the audience, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there is life after death. Unfortunately, none of it can prove any such thing. Now, I myself have done spirit box sessions with some pretty crazy replies and results, which you can listen to right on this channel. I've captured orbs hovering above my altar in my temple on camera. So I know this phenomena is real. But are they actually spirits? Maybe, maybe not. Are they spirits of people that have passed on? Maybe, maybe not. From my experience with EVPs and the spirit box, the voices that come through don't always tell the truth. So you can't take their word for it. So are these really spirits, or are we tapping into the subconscious mind? Or that superconsciousness that binds us all together, which we tend to overlook as we buy into the grand illusion that we're somehow all separated, when we're all really connected through another consciousness. So when it comes to these paranormal research shows, there is something to it. Unfortunately, their bias always gets them to jump to the conclusion that it's a spirit or a ghost, when it just simply may not be. And may even be something that we don't even know about yet. I'm not entirely convinced, and even more than that, I'm even amused that they're out trying to collect evidence of something that they can never, ever conclusively prove. Alright, so now we get to one of the more interesting theories. If you followed me on this channel for any length of time, you may know that one of the books I recommend is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Spoilers for those who have not read it yet, but in the book, Napoleon Hill allegedly has a conversation with the devil, which isn't really the traditional Christian portrayal of the devil. It's really just a consciousness that resides in one half of all matter, as it is the negative half of the atom. Now, what happens to us when we pass on, according to this devil consciousness, is that depending on how we die, it may or may not get to eat us. Which is terrifying. Have you ever seen The Evil Dead, where the Deadites say, "I'll swallow your soul"? Yeah, it's kind of like that. Although swallow or eat may be incorrect terms for it, it may be closer to absorbed. But basically you become either part of it or part of the positive consciousness. And according to the book, it doesn't matter what you've done in your life, what good works you've done, whether or not you believe in Jesus or God, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is whether or not you are afraid when you die, whether or not you're in a state of fear at the moment of death. And I find that very, very fascinating because, as we know, there are only really two emotions that all other emotions are derived from. There's love and there's fear. And according to the devil in this book, the emotions that you experience when you pass on determines which consciousness gets to absorb you. The prospect of getting absorbed by another consciousness is almost more terrifying than the prospect of a Christian hell to where you're sent for punishment. But one of the laws of magic is that everything returns to source. If we were created by a divine spark from our Creator, would we not return to the Creator as a drop of rain falls back into the ocean? And so I find this theory one of the most uniquely fascinating. And it doesn't come from just anyone. It comes from Napoleon Hill, the man who wrote Think and Grow Rich, of which I have a copy in my hand right at this moment. For those who have never read it, you should. So the fact that it comes from Napoleon Hill makes it even more interesting. And this isn't the only time I've heard of such a theory. There's another in which the evil consciousness that is represented by Napoleon Hill's devil is actually an insane Cancer consciousness. And it goes on to explain exactly what Cancer is. That this consciousness coerces, entices, and recruits the consciousness of other selves so that they will join it. And you would see this as a tumor that is growing. Now, where the consciousness is insane is that it sees itself as being separate from the rest of the body, from the rest of nature, and that by doing so, it has achieved immortality. And we know this would be insane because as the cancer grows, it kills off the host, which kills itself off as well. And once again, according to this theory, depending on how you die, you either get absorbed by this cancer consciousness or by the natural positive consciousness. Very similar to Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil. And I heard this one first before reading that book, which made me pause all the more when I did read it. So I do like these theories, but that's all they are. Theories. It's never going to be able to be proven, but I would say that it is just as, if not more likely, than anything that the Christians are telling you. To me, it makes far more sense than the heaven or hell theory. Moving on, some people may ask, well, Frater, what about out-of-body experiences or astral travel? Wouldn't those experiences prove that we have a spirit that can move and act independently of our body? No. And the reason being is that we don't know whether or not astral travel or an out-of-body experience is dependent upon us having a body. Without a body, without a brain, without a mind, these experiences simply may not be possible. However, these are the experiences that we use just in case. And what I mean by that is we practice these experiences, lucid dreaming, astral travel, out-of-body experiences, to add our consciousness to an otherwise unconscious or subconscious state. Because as we said before, the conscious part of ourselves, the ego, doesn't seem to survive. It doesn't come back. But what if the afterlife is similar to a dream state where you don't have conscious control? So we practice adding our consciousness to these subconscious dreamlike states so that we can gain control. And that's really the best that we can do. Also, it does help us in our magical practice, and so I do recommend picking up the practice of lucid dreaming or astral travel, if you have not already done so that you can experience adding your conscious awareness to an otherwise unconscious state. And that will about do it for today. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, or subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Frater Xavier, or consider joining us on Patreon, where patrons have early access to Mystery School videos before they're available on YouTube. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.